the cops I'm worried about.
Not you, too. That story's a load of bull.
Marvin saw it last week.
Marvin, who's in the hospital?
Yeah. How do you think he got there?
Well, then he's got a screw loose, because there ain't no friggin'...
Hey, what? Shut up! Someone's in here with us.
When someone mentions Batman, what comes to mind? Dark, intimidating, tough, brooding, detective? If any of these words popped up into your head, there can only be one reason why. Batman, the animated series. A cartoon that many believed changed the landscape of storytelling in animation upon its initial airing. Despite the series being a byproduct of Tim Burton's 1989 Batman film, Batman the Animated Series had taken on a life of its own and ended up kickstarting a new renaissance for DC and Warner Brothers in animation. In turn, it was instrumental in introducing kids to more of the DC gallery, with series such as Superman the Animated Series, the Bruce Timm Paul Dini original creation Batman Beyond, and the reimagining of the Justice League. So it's well known that Batman the Animated Series was their blueprint, and DC Animation has taken it to levels no one could have ever imagined. To this day, WB Animation is still making animated films based on DC comic properties, whether it's original creations or adaptations of their best-selling stories in their history as a publication. Now, they have brought a new addition to their catalog with the help of J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot Studios, Matt Reeves, the director and co-writer of the highly successful DC Comics film The Batman, and the man alongside Paul Dini, of course, who created the Blueprint animated series itself, Bruce Timm, with Batman Caped Crusader. It was hyped up to be a spiritual remake / successor to Batman the Animated Series, but also set up an established series that ties into Matt Reeves' The Batman and its upcoming, tentatively titled sequel, The Batman 2. So with these three at the helm, with the assistance of Ed Brubaker serving as one of the writers and a producer, does it recapture the nostalgic feel of Batman the Animated Series but also maintain the lore of the Batman? Or is it a failed attempt on both fronts and just a by-the-numbers animated series from WB Animation? Let's find out. Upon hearing the announcement of Batman Caped Crusader coming to Prime Video, my expectations for it were at an all-time high. And why wouldn't it be? It had Bruce Timm attached to it, a man highly regarded for his prowess in animation. He helped create some of the greatest cartoons of our childhood. Now he was back to give something resembling Batman the Animated Series. As a fan of cartoons, it was too hard to pass up. Upon viewing the first episode, I could see the influence of Bruce Timm instantly. The look of Gotham is very reminiscent of the original series. The setting, the color direction, everything is there. But the episode doesn't initially open with a view of Gotham, but with a goon tied up in a chair being interrogated for betraying the boss. This opening scene shows the audience which direction the series is going in. The boss is revealed. It's the Penguin. Upon Bruce Timm and Matt Reeves introducing the first episode at their panel at the 2014 San Diego Comic-Con, it was revealed that the Penguin was now a woman, Oswalda Cobblepot, which is voiced by the very talented Minnie Driver, by the way. More on the character shortly. This episode establishes the world in which Gotham is set. It's set in the 1940s. This can be surmised by the look of the characters, the vehicles they drive, etc. Whereas Batman the animated series had the same similar look to the setting, a more Art Deco look, Batman Caped Crusader is undeniably set in that era. This is the strength of the first episode. The state of Gotham as a city is established in a way that isn't explained thoroughly through exposition, but from how the characters speak about it. This was great, in my opinion, considering that many have seen either a Batman live-action film, animated film, series, or read a Batman comic book. We all know how corrupt Gotham is already from the years of being exposed to it in those mediums. A character or two mentioning it is enough at this point. Speaking of character, one of the characters that do mention the corruption in Gotham is none other than Barbara Gordon. Let's clear that elephant in the room. This version of Barbara is now African American and a DA. I presume this was a decision of Matt Reeves as it matches his depiction of Jim Gordon in the Batman. This version of Barbara is a no-nonsense DA that defends the unfortunate in Gotham, while Harvey Dent is on the opposite side of the fence, defending the corrupt, all in his bid for mayor of Gotham. To be honest, the depiction of Harvey Dent was very off-putting. He is quite the jerk in this iteration, and very one-track minded. When he interacts with Barbara, the dynamic between them is very confrontational. Let me cut to the chase. This is not a depiction of Harvey Dent that's mostly remembered in Batman the Animated Series. He's very one-note and is fodder for Barbara to bump heads against. You might know where I am going with it, but I will get to her depiction shortly. Lastly, we are introduced to Batman in the best possible way. He thwarts the criminals in typical Batman fashion. It isn't difficult to presume that he is imposing and mysterious. This is Batman. What the scene does, though, is introduce the audience to the look of the character. The character design is a complete homage to the original Bob Kane version that was introduced in the 1940s. Coincidence? And yes, I know the character was introduced in 1939, but he finally got his very own comic book in 1940. Just to clear the air. Not only it's a great throwback to the history of the Dark Knight himself, it also establishes his presence in Gotham, as he has just started appearing on the streets of Gotham, where he's only rumored to be real. He looks very intimidating, as he should always look. The long-horned cowl sold me on him perfectly. He just looks scary, but as we know with Batman, he's only scary to criminals. In other words, don't cross his path if you're doing wrong. In the episode, we get to see him as Bruce Wayne as well, and it's for good reason that I mention him this way. It's always been a well-known theory that Bruce Wayne is the disguise. Whether or not it's true, Batman the Caped Crusader depicts him as a very coy and a tad clumsy playboy millionaire who is the most eligible bachelor in Gotham. So take what I mentioned as you may wish. Whereas you get the gist of Batman and Bruce Wayne through their familiarity, the same can't be said about Oswaldo Cobblepot. I would like to say that Minnie Driver's vocal performance as the Penguin is done very well. As for the character itself, well, see, I have a thing about iconic characters being race swapped or gender swapped. When this happens, it's usually to make a statement based on a gender. The major flaw with that is that it ends up taking charm and essence away from the character. Unfortunately, this is the case with the Penguin. The character is someone usually depicted as a man who is grotesque in appearance and personality. It may look on the surface that she matches these criteria, but in a scene where she does a dance number in front of a group of men, she's depicted as someone that the viewer is supposed to find attractive. This goes against what the character is supposed to be. It was very jarring to see that. Even though she does dabble in villainy in the episode, she doesn't quite match up to the other depictions of the character in various other versions. I truly believe this version of the character was changed to make a statement. In turn, the essence of the character is partially lost. It's still the Penguin, but does making her a female make the character better? The answer is no. In fact, she was quite forgettable in my opinion, which is unfortunate because this is one of Batman's well-known villains from his rogue gallery. With the introduction of the main players in episode 1, the viewer is introduced to another staple character in the original series, Detective Renee Montoya. I would like to say that she was one of my favorite supporting characters in Batman the Animated Series. She's a good cop who truly cares about Gotham and manages to bump heads with Detective Bullock, who's also in Batman Caped Crusader, by the way. And yes, he is what you think he is in this iteration. I am glad to say that she is the same in this series as well. This time, she plays a more active role as she is a true detective, newly assigned to the position by Jim Gordon. Her character looks a bit different, but the essence of the character is there, thankfully. This episode has her investigating the disappearance of a famous movie actress, Yvonne Francis. A great scene that starts the episode is her in the interrogation room with Bruce, and it seems he's trying to bribe her to leave him alone. Knowing both of these characters, you know how they will react to each other. In case you don't know, Bruce was in full detective mode during the interrogation. The most unpredictable part of the scene is the interrogation being interrupted by Lucius Fox, a man very instrumental in Bruce's development as a man. And of course, Alfred Pennyworth as well. Or just Pennyworth as Bruce likes to call him in the series. It's those instances that shows why Batman is the most intriguing and methodical character in all of DC. He's always thinking 5 steps ahead of everyone. In the episode, we see Basil Karlo, who is the original Clayface. Not Matt Hagen. He's the second Clayface. You know, the one most known from Batman the Animated Series. His depiction is done very well. He closely resembles the original version of the villain in the comics. Episode 3 introduces viewers to Catwoman. Oh boy, you have to love Catwoman. The only one from Batman's rogue gallery that has always managed to ruffle Batman's proverbial cape in a way no one could. Unsurprisingly, that's the character depicted in this iteration. This time, she is quite sultry with a classic 1940s movie actress look and raven-haired. Think of her being a combination of Greta Garbo and Jean Harlow. Voiced by Christina Ricci, who does a very remarkable job, by the way. This version of Selene Kyle is an irresponsible, down-on-her-luck debutante dealing with her father being imprisoned for tax fraud. In other words, she's broke. So broke, she hasn't paid her maid in 3 years. And her maid's name? Greta. Yes, that's her name. Coincidence? Maybe. As on par with the character, she turns to a life of thievery to keep her lifestyle intact. Let me get this out of the way. I loved her character design. In Batman the Animated Series, she dons a gray catsuit that has always been on par with every other depiction of the character. But here, she wears a long blue cocktail dress with a domino mask. This bold direction is implemented very well because the essence of the character is still intact. Now, having her jump from rooftop to rooftop in said dress and high heels while being chased by Batman was a tad absurd, but the character was done so well, this could be dismissed. The episode also introduces Dr. Harleen Quinzel. Yes, that Harleen Quinzel. Whereas I loved the character design of Selene Kyle and Catwoman, the same could not be said about Harleen's depiction in the episode. Her character design is an example of the problem that I have with the animation. If you blinked and watched the episode from a distance, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between Harleen and Renee Montoya. That sameness in the character designs was quite jarring for me. Most of the characters just have this generic look to them. Even Alfred Pennyworth looks that way as well. This is the problem with Harleen. They changed the look of the character we all know and love and made her appear as a chubby South Asian woman. This is a very bad design choice in my opinion and had me loathing it throughout the entire episode. The only aspect that makes the character decent is Jamie Chung's vocal performance. She does a very good job here. My gripe is that this series was coined as a nostalgic recapturing of Batman the Animated Series, and to change the look of the character so drastically contradicts their intentions. The episode serves as a way to delve into what happened to his parents, and I did like how at a very early age he wanted to make the people who murdered his parents pay.
All of them. I'm going to make them pay. And you're going to help me.
That's the driving force of the episode, honestly, as the interactions between Batman and Catwoman are secondary. Episodes 4 and 5 are where the flaws in the series start to surface. Several instances of plausibility had taken me out of the experience. Episode 4 introduces Firebug, but the way he is brought into the story borderlines on absurdity. The kicker is that the episode is written by Ed Brubaker, and you see his style of storytelling in the episode. For those familiar with his tenure in comics, we see the episode delve into the criminology of Batman and Gotham's distrust of him. But the episode is far from great, considering his pedigree for writing some of the best stories ever in comics. This has to do more with the characters themselves than the writing. This couldn't be more prevalent than in episode 5, where we are finally introduced to Harley Quinn. I have to say that the rendition of Harley Quinn is poorly done. Besides her costume design, which was the only thing done remotely well about this character. The plausibility of the character's motives, look, and role in the episode just wasn't working at all. And it's an example of how changing the core essence of a well-known character can ruin it completely, even if it's something small. The writer of the episode, Haley Gross, delivers a very dreadfully written episode. The episode has Batman investigating a man who he stopped from getting ran over by a vehicle. This, of course, leads Batman to his residence, where he finds a clue that changes everything. The best scene is where the cops are led by Flash and Bullock, case the same place and throw tear gas into the vault Batman is in. The scene showcases why Batman is Batman. Just seeing it put a smile on my face because it plays up to who he is as a character and what we love about him. Unfortunately, this is the only thing that I can say that was great about this episode. Shoehorning Barbara to be a detective on the same trail as Batman made no sense, considering that she is just the DA. Barbara keeping one step alongside Batman was an example of bad characterization on the writer's part. The episode featured tropes that were so badly implemented that I could predict every single aspect that happened in the episode. For instance, in the episode, Batman fights off the patients that Harley Quinn has been keeping in her glass cells. The way Batman is captured in one of the cells is borderline absurd, considering that he took down a room full of cops under the cover of tear gas previously in the episode. And guess what happens next? If you don't know the trope, let me say this. The episode focuses on the relationship between Montoya, Barbara, and Harleen, so take that into consideration. Fortunately, the second half of the season fares a little bit better than the first half. The writers, yes, even Haley Gross, managed to churn out something decent by introducing villains such as the Gentleman Ghost, Onomatopoeia, and Nocturna in episodes 6, 7, and 8 respectively. Episodes 6 and 8 dabbles in a part of the lore we rarely see when it comes to Batman, the macabre. This was very unusual for the direction that the season had been going in so far, but very welcoming, as Batman is a character that never really had a belief in those things. He's always been a skeptic, of course, and this plays out in the episode as well. Even Papa Midnight makes an appearance in episode 6. He plays an active supporting role and fits in this episode like a glove. Seeing classic characters in this manner was great to see. The episodes start to focus more on Harvey Dent as we find out that he really wants to be mayor to change Gotham for good. But as always in the city, there's the corrupt, and there's a bargain he has to make with them. In other words, he gets into business with Rupert Thorne. Anyone who's seen Batman the Animated Series knows that he's bad news, and it's no different in Batman Caped Crusader. By the end of episode 8, we see the end results of that relationship. Speaking of that, episode 9 finally introduces viewers to Two-Face. For the record, Two-Face isn't only one of the best and one of my favorite villains in Batman's rogue gallery, but also one of my favorite villains in all of comics. He is a man that's so scorned on the outside, it fractures his entire psyche, and he struggles with this duplicity. His entire thought process depends on the flip of a single coin, an object that determines the fate of those he encounters. Those elements always made him intriguing to me, and in Caped Crusader, it's captured greatly. This is due to how they set up the character itself. In the beginning of the season, you see that he is just a DA trying to do anything he can, even defending Gotham's corrupt to become the next mayor of the city. But later in the season, you start to see his true intentions and his character unfold. He is a man who truly wants to change Gotham and really doesn't like the corrupt that he defends. It's that duality of the character that we see throughout the season before we are introduced to his full transformation into Two-Face. This is the most fleshed out character outside of Bruce Wayne in the entire season. We see the slow burn into the man he's destined to become. It certainly helps that this version of the character is quite snarky, and I've really enjoyed every line of dialogue he said in the episode. Hearing lines like this,
Just as much as I'd like to give you another chance, handing out second chances to people like you just doesn't work. Because you and all the others, you aren't actually people. You're cancer.
and this,
Please, don't. It was forced on. He made me do it. He made me do it.
Oh, I know, Tony, but you still did it. And for the record, the other guy may not want to kill you, but I sure as hell do.
just had me smiling from ear to ear. This rendition of the character isn't one to be trifled with. The kicker of it all is that they totally maintain the essence of the character entirely.
Me. You are one brave kid. But I never could resist a 2-for-1 special.
So the question remains to be answered. Does Batman Cape Crusader recapture the feel and nostalgia of Batman the Animated Series? Also, does it manage to best it in every aspect? Unfortunately, the answer is no. This was bound to be the answer. Batman the Animated Series is a classic for a reason, and this is why Cape Crusader pales in comparison. It misses the mark by a long margin. What Cape Crusader attempts is very admirable, but its execution isn't done very well. Considering the many other animated series bearing Batman's name that have done so in the past. I believe there's 3 factors why Cape Crusader doesn't live up to the hype and the gold standard set by Batman the Animated Series. The first is the depiction of the characters. While you had great renditions of Harvey Dent, Batman, and Catwoman that maintained the essence of them, the others were downright generic down to their character designs. Their implementation of race swapping and flat out changing the way they initially looked renders them unrecognizable, to a point where they lost their charm and personality that made them notable. Harley Quinn and Barbara Gordon are prime examples of that. On top of this, it tries to make the viewer believe that it makes the characters better because of it. Case in point with Oswald the Cobblepot. Second, the plausibility of some of the characters' roles in the series and their actions was downright absurd. For instance, I found it very implausible that Barbara Gordon takes down 2 burly men with her bare hands, shooting guns in 2 car chases, and investigating crime scenes ahead of Batman and rescuing him being downright absurd. This is a character steeped in plot convenience. It can be said that she can do those things because of her dad, but the thing is that Jim Gordon doesn't have much of an active presence for us to know that she can do those things. He was the one that had to be protected in episode 6 by Barbara and Renee. To add to that, Jim has little to no agency in this series. Besides episode 7, he has no importance to the story. Back on topic, guess who ended up being the bad guy among them in episode 7? Think of the cliche, and I can guarantee that you are right. The fact is that it played up to the redundant girl power fantasy cliche found in today's media. This was most prevalent in episode 5. Looking at you, Haley Gross. It took me out of the experience many times. Placing her in every aspect of the story just felt forced. The same can be said about Harleen Quinzel as well. She wasn't only completely unrecognizable, but her character design looked so similar to Renee Montoya's. When she adopts her Harleen Quinn persona, it has little to no impact because we don't see anything that remotely causes her to turn out that way. Instead, the writer of the episode, Haley Gross, was more occupied with shoehorning a romance between her and Renee. Her character development takes a huge backseat to that and ruins her character entirely. I found the character very unlikable because we aren't given a chance to know the character. She doesn't say anything or do anything of interest outside of being Harley Quinn. In Batman, the animated series, her transformation is closely tied to the Joker, so this element of her character is brushed to the side. In my opinion, this is a huge mistake on Bruce Timm's part in many ways. Lastly, the plot of the episodes and writing itself lacked the charm found in not only Batman the Animated Series, but every other Batman animated series after it. Well, maybe not Beware the Batman, which was a mixed bag itself. It felt like most of the episodes were just written for the sake of filling up in episode order. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, since a lot of shows do the same, but when the plots aren't engaging, that flaw sticks out like a sore thumb. Except for Two-Face and Catwoman, the villains were very lackluster as well. Batman has a wide assortment of villains in his rogue gallery, so seeing the villains the writers chose was a huge letdown due to how they were written in the series, especially Oswald the Cobblepot. I presume this will be rectified in season 2. To note, the animation itself wasn't the best WB animation is known for. This is the same studio that crafted series such as Young Justice and Harley Quinn. The animation tries to resemble Batman the Animated Series, but it doesn't quite match up to its iconic design. Everything from the scenery to the character designs looks plain, flat, and generic in most episodes. But this is just a small gripe on my end, not a strike against the series itself. Now, the strength of the series was Batman himself. This is the Dark Knight through and through. This is a way grittier version of Batman. He takes a much more brutal approach to fighting bad guys. That's one aspect that was never in Batman the Animated Series, and is greatly appreciated here. Whenever he appears in a scene, he has a presence that commands your attention. It certainly helps that the vocal performance of Hamish Linklater is so spot on for the character. He sounds like a more subdued and calmer version of Kevin Conroy. Don't know if this was done intentionally, but it ends up paying homage to the late iconic voice actor, nevertheless. The rest of the voice cast was great as well. Despite what I felt about Oswaldo Cobblepot and Harleen Quinzel, Minnie Driver and Jamie Chung churned out great vocal performances respectively. The same goes for Christina Ricci as Selena Kyle. She was great. While the rest of the series does ramp up towards the latter half of the season, the truth is that Batman Caped Crusader doesn't hold a candle to Batman the Animated Series. It's a close approximation of it, but a lot of the elements that made it great just aren't in Caped Crusader. But it does manage to maintain what Matt Reeves set out to do with the series. I assume that's good or bad depending on whether you like his film or not. The blending of modern sensibilities with the setting of the series itself just didn't work. There's a chance that the series will improve in the next season. That's just the nature of creating a series. But the issues with the series itself are something that's baked in, unfortunately. It can't be changed. Batman Caped Crusader was a decent watch, but not enough to ever be seen as memorable as Batman the Animated Series. And that's all right, because at the end of the day, it's Batman. That alone will keep many invested in anything he is in. But unfortunately, from what this series has presented so far, I don't see it being a long endeavor for many. But as they say, only time can tell, because from what's teased at the end of episode 10, it seems things are about to get very interesting, in the form of a major villain. Oh, by the way, you go, Greta. You deserve that trip to the Bahamas. Have a great time soaking up the sun.
Listen to me, sir. Harvey Dent was twisted by ambition. He lost sight of his own humanity. That isn't you. You're still inside there, Master Bruce. I see it more and more, all the time. You've even made friends, in your own way.
4 of us against an endless tide. Dent was right. Those are terrible odds. But I'll take them.